Hi everybody. After our last video, which we sent it out, we received a lot of requests for some additional information about doing some work on dark-skinned people, African American or maybe Latin people which are very tanned or live in South America. And I thought it would be a very interesting point to show you guys a little bit how you can work it, which colors to use, which colors I discovered work the best for me, and what are the reasons why I choose those colors and why they vary a little bit if I use different colors for different skin tones. So let's start out here. You see this is a half sleeve. This is the elbow bend. Goes up all the way almost to the shoulder and 3/4 down, almost like a Japanese sleeve on the forearm. This tattoo was done in one session. Took approximately 6.5 hours, so maybe 7 hours. Everything has been done on the same day. The person is dark-skinned, African American. Maybe has some little mix in it somewhere down the line. I can't really say it, but he was a little lighter, so it was not really charcoal dark skin. It was more like a little really warm, deep brown, orangey skin. So it was like a lot in the sun, but still soft skin, not burnt like in the desert or stuff like that. So we used for the line work, what you see over here was just like true black, some lining black on it. Lining black was used mostly in the inside for the scales. True black was used for the lines in here, and in here. First thing what you will see already and what I want to point out is that I use very little shading gradations. So it's not like that you go, like if you would work on a lighter skin person, you can make a fade from a black to a really soft gray, so it's almost not visible and then it blends into the skin. I would really recommend, on my experience, that you avoid that. Either way, you make a dark shade and you make a medium shade, you don't need more than that. It's like, so you need to be a little bit more harsher in the shading, like a little bit less gradients, a little shorter in the span how you shade. So if you go and you would have a line here and you want to shade something to here, usually it would be really dark here, a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter, a little bit lighter, and then you have the little spots here. If there's a darker skinned person, I would go darker here and then lighter from here. I mean, this is what I would do, because you will not see the whole light blends going. It just doesn't work. You have to keep in mind that the pigment you put into the skin is, if this is the skin, you lay the pigment in, it's right underneath here. So when the light reflects off the pigment, it will have to go into the skin and throughout the skin. So if somebody is darker skinned, you will always have the layer on top. It doesn't matter what you do, you will always have that. It's almost like making a drawing and you put a translucent brownish paper on top of a color. It muddies it up, and that's really a good effect. So if you want to draw it home, you can see it. You draw it, you take some paper, lay it over it, then you can see how the color is going to change in you, like when you put them into dark skin. So be very careful with that. So the less is more in this case. You see there's very sharp shading here, very sharp shading here, almost no soft shading. All the water behind it, there's no black in it, there's no black under shading in the koi. There's very little shading at the tail. So you try to have almost a graphic piece, very detailed in the lines, very clean, not too many lines, the less is more in this case. Do it. Don't go and start like to make little lines in it, it's not going to be seen. You know, it just doesn't work that way. The colors I used in the background was Mario's blue, Mario's light blue. Even in the colors, I was very distinctive. I used the dark blue in here, all in one shade, no gradations. And I used the light blue right in here, all one shade, no gradations. When I say this, I mean solid color. I'm not fading the color, I'm not blending the color. I use the dark blue for this section, the light blue for this section. It's almost blotchy, almost like more color by numbers type. I do get lighter when I come up here. I use some aquamarine here. and then some white, but very, very little, because white will turn a little brownish or almost like ivory because of the skin, what's on top of it. So it's like very little, and then just an accent that you have to it. You're gonna lose 90% of it in the white, but it helps you to give it a little extra touch on it sometimes to get some form of light effect. And if you use it for very, very little spots only, it will hold up. It's not that it's gonna go away. It's gonna go away 90%, but those 10% which stay, gonna make it look that you have some white in there, which is always a great effect on dark skin. The center section, there was in the scales absolutely no shading in there. I used a red cherry in there, starting in the center, halfway through. If you have a scale like this, and I would use like a dark cherry coming in here, solid color, solid ending. And I would use a bright red right here for the next. Come up to here. And then use maybe a hard orange right to here. So again, I would not blend those colors with each other. If you blend them together, you're not going to have the effect you want to, because it's not visible. You always deal with that other item you have, which is dark skin on top. So it's doing some automatic blending for you. So try to make it go in this way, make it very distinctive and be very clear. Leave a little line. It helps you. That's why you can put some white in, which gives you that highlighted feel. There's actual white in there, and even like I said before, if it stays ivory, it's great. It works that way. I used some browns in there, going from a dark brown to a medium brown. I have some tangerine in here. All those are great colors if the person has an orange undertone. When I say orange undertone, it means when you look at the skin and it looks warm. So if somebody has a blue undertone, you want to be very, very careful when you use like an orange, because it's going to turn into brown instantly. So if you do some research on a color circle and you see where the warm colors are and the cold colors are, if somebody's more cold in its color, in its skin color, you should stay away from the warmer colors. If you stay with that, if you mix them up, they're going to turn grayish, muddy, brownish. It's going to turn it down. So if somebody has a warm undertone like this person had, I would try to stay in the warm areas here, you know, and I'd just be like, I know I used the blue because I know it's strong enough that it's going to stay, it's going to come out. I used some dark green in here, some light green, used a golden yellow and a banana cream to make this light effect on top of the eye. Again, the dot is white, it's going to stay that way, shouldn't give you too much of a problem. Do not use a lemon yellow. You're gonna lose it. Lemon yellow is a greenish color. It has a touch of green in it, like the skin of a lemon. If you put it into a dark skin, it doesn't work. It's like you have that dark layer on top of it. It's gonna muddy the whole color up, and it's gonna be gone. It's gonna turn into a brown. Doesn't matter if it's warm or cold. Use a banana cream to do those highlights. The banana cream I use because there's white in there and yellow, so it's distinctively strong enough and opposite of every other colors we use that you're gonna keep that highlight. The main part is, even if you lose 80% of that highlight, you still have a highlight, and it's the must for every tattoo to have some highlights so you get a 3D look, or you know, you want to do a piece more dimensional than one. The same part down here I used in the little cat's face. I used some white in the beard. It's a very, very small area, so you can use lighter colors in small areas. Do not try to use a white in here, like as a whole area. It doesn't work. Whites, banana cream yellows, all the yellows, all the highlights should be done very, very small, very tiny. So everything else should overpower, most likely in that. You see some yellow in here. Those only come out like that because we used some ruby red on the outside and some cherry red, and then we just used a little bit of yellow, banana cream yellow with some white in it. Another big part what I want to point out is just like what I learned over over the years was that the most people think if you have the skin, if this is the top surface of the skin, and this is a perfect depth where you want to get it into your pigment, which is approximately a quarter, the thickness of a quarter, that's approximately the depth you want to achieve. And then there's the fat tissue underneath. So the most people consider that you want to pound it in because somebody's dark skinned. They want to pound it in as deep as possible, as hard as possible. Let it work, let it work, let it work. Pour it, work it, work it. Huge mistake. Dark-skinned people are very, very sensitive skin people. They're more easily to keloid. You have to be very, very, very careful, very patient on it. You're not going to see the color right away. The only time you see it is when you work it in, you see it, and then 2 seconds later the color muddies up. Do not go over it again. Do not. You will tear up the skin. It's going to bleed out. You can cause some serious scar tissue, and you should not do it. It's like they're way more sensitive in the skin than a white person. So be very, very cautious about that. When you go in, I learned that you have to learn to stretch the skin very, very well. And then use as little depth as possible. As less you use, the better it is. So you go in and you want to place that pigment right here. First of all, you don't have to deal with an additional layer of skin tissue. And second of all, you don't have to deal with the dilution from the fat tissue to the pigment. Fat tissue is liquid. It's not a solid mass. So it's like it has a liquid, it's like jello-like. So when you put pigment in there, it's going to spread. When the pigment spreads, it's going to get diluted. It's nothing else as you would put a shading liquid into the color. Which, by the way, on dark-skinned person, I would stay away from using mixing solutions. It's not a necessity. Use it straight up. That's what you want to do. We have some raspberry in there too, which is always a nice color. It has a blue in it, and helps you to get a little bit more of an effect of the brown, because if you use a dark brown and the person is brown, it almost blends in that you can't see it. So just use a raspberry, gives it a little reddish shade, so it takes it a little bit in the hotter side and the warmer side, that you get some tone difference between the browns. So make sure that you stay somewhere on top of this. Don't go deeper than a quarter. You don't have to be as deep as you think. You know, the skin is very susceptible to to ink. I'm sorry. We need to cut this down. You don't have to go too deep. The skin is very acceptive to receiving pigment or ink. So just be aware of that. The less you do with a darker skinned person, the better it is. So less damage, less shading, less working on it. You do not want to, I cannot stress it enough, don't overwork it, don't overwork it, don't overwork it. If there's any other questions, needles which I used, I love to use my 15 Magnum curved. That's what I do. I trained myself to use it. It works for me every time. I will use most of the time 7 to 9 liners.